camps in the occupied West Bank after a 10-day operation which saw dozens of Palestinians and an activist from the United States killed. The main focus was on the Jenin camp, with Israel saying it was targeting militants. It comes as further Israeli airstrikes struck parts of Gaza. One of them hit a housing block in Gaza City on Tuesday, where 10-year-old Palestinian girl Tala Abu Ajwa was playing outside on her rollerblades with friends. And a warning that this report from our correspondent Rachel Younger contains images of Tala which you may find upsetting.
She's floored by grief, her world pulled out from under her, oblivious to everything but the loss of her daughter, still holding one of the pink rollerblades Tala was playing in when she died. The doctors fighting to save her had no time to remove them until there was nothing more left they could do. A little while later, Tala's dad Hussam is still holding her skates as he makes the phone calls every parent most fears. She was martyred, he sobs, killed on the front door of our home.
I am Palestinian. I live Gaza Strip.
This is Tala, practicing her English. At 10 years old, she had a lifetime to perfect a language she knew was a gateway to a life outside Gaza. But at tea time on Tuesday, all she wanted in the world was to be allowed out on the street with her friends.
And dancing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This is what happened next. Chaos in the aftermath of an Israeli strike. The lower part of Tala's building was hit. She was caught by falling rubble. Her friend injured, a 3-year-old neighbour dead. Her mum Hadeel hadn't wanted to let her outside. My neighbour told me, my children are downstairs, let her go play with them, she says. I said, OK, go down for a bit and come back. Tala shouted, yay, she was so happy. And so she went down and the strike came. But how can any parent keep a child safe when the streets outside look like this? In ordinary times, the little girl who won certificates of excellence would have been busy with the start of a new school year. But after 11 months, there's no chance of schools reopening here. Her ambition was just to go back to school and for her backpack to be filled with books again, instead of clothes, for every time we're displaced, says her mum. I bought her a new backpack, but she just put clothes in it again.
She always prayed that the war would be over and we would leave Gaza, and I would say, God willing, when the war is over. Well, the war is over for her. Now she is in heaven.
Alhamdulillah. A little girl whose skates offered a brief escape from the war, killed as she played with her friends.
And Rachel is in Tel Aviv tonight. Rachel, Israel's military operation in the occupied West Bank does appear to be ending. What, if anything, does that do for hopes of peace?
Well, quite frankly, I don't think it moves on those hopes of peace and those stalled ceasefire talks at all. Just take a look at some of the devastation that the Israeli military left behind them in Jenin. Now, we're used to seeing destruction of this scale, aren't we? We've become almost shockingly accustomed to it over the past 11 months in Gaza. But this is the West Bank, where crucially Hamas, the militant group that Israel is at war with, are not in power. Now, the Israeli military have told us this was a necessary counter-terrorism operation. They say it was designed to arrest militants and to prevent further attacks. But our team spent time in the West Bank last week and were told again and again by Palestinians there that they were increasingly fearful the war in Gaza would spread out, that they would be next. And certainly since the war began back in October, they have increasingly had their freedom of movement curtailed, and there have been more and more incidents of settler violence. Now, protesting against that cost one American activist, a woman called Ashana Agi, her life today. She was shot during a demonstration, a protest that the Israeli military say was putting their forces in danger, although they say they are now investigating that particular incident. But it is a cycle of violence that young Tala in Gaza was so desperate to escape. And I think the question that Israel is facing more and more now from various quarters internationally is whether destruction of this scale can be proportionate to their stated aim of destroying Hamas, or whether there is possibly an unspoken goal here of making parts of the Palestinian territories uninhabitable. All of that making these peace talks and the resumption of them and any hope of peace seeming further away than ever as they go on tonight.
Right, Rachel in Tel Aviv, thank you. A Royal Navy service